Here at Alternate Reality, less is always more, because all new comics are always 15% off here at Alternate Reality. Every day for everyone. Unlike other stores, I have knocked 15% off the cover price of every new comic that's ever walked out the door here, going all the way back to when I first opened in 1994. So why shop anywhere else when you can come down here and save 15% off every day for everyone at Alternate Reality?
What's done is done. And by all means, let's talk about it. Here's Comic Book Man with the Week in Review.
Set a spell. Take your shoes off. Don't come back now. Here.
A week so nice, we review it twice. Week in Review for January 26, 2011, Part 1.
Hey folks, Comic Book Man here. Welcome once again to my video outhouse. It's time for Week in Review, and this is the Week in Review for January the 26th, 2011. We're going to talk about the shipping for this week, because this is going to be Part 1 of Week in Review. It's a two-part Week in Review this week. We're going to do Part 1 here on the shipping, and then be sure to look for Part 2, where we're going to do something we haven't done in a while, a Week in Review shop talk with JR and Bo on some of the stuff that happened this week. We got a big week of shipping this week. This was a huge week, 96 books shipped this week, and of course, the big book for this week, the book that people will be talking about a year from now.
Look, somebody died.
Is Three. A brand new book 3. This is a great title, 3. Marvel should have done 3 a long time ago. And the best part is, it comes in a black bag.
Has anyone ever opened it and
So
read it?
you don't know what the hell happens.
Nobody's even opened it and read it.
Anybody can say this is a great book, because you know what? Nobody's read it.
There's nothing in there. We don't even know.
No, this obviously is, of course, Fantastic Four number 587 with the death of, and this is your spoiler. This is a spoiler. If you don't know by now, you haven't been paying any attention. The death of the Human Torch, Johnny Storm. That's right, Johnny Storm buys it in this book.
We called it.
Now, we called it. I had said it was going to be Mr. Fantastic and that they weren't going to kill anybody. They weren't going to kill him, but I thought it was going to be Mr. Fantastic because he seemed the most expendable. But instead, they went with Johnny Storm. Now, I was obviously wrong about that, but why would they pick Johnny Storm? Well, you do have 2 Human Torches in the Marvel Universe. You can get rid of Johnny Storm and still have a Human Torch, the android floating around out there. I believe his name is Jim Hammond. The android floating around out there. And I would bet money that even if Johnny Storm comes back from the dead, which Marvel has more or less said is going to happen anyway, at some point, a year or so from now, maybe longer, and he won't be the Human Torch when he comes back. That's also, Marvel said that he won't be the Human Torch. But I would bet money that you will see Jim Hammond, the Human Torch, showing up in the Fantastic Four in the new FF book that's coming right after the next issue of this, because they're canceling this book, Fantastic Four, with issue number 588.
The truth is that issue separated them all into different spots anyway.
Yeah, well, that's how this ended. It was a cliffhanger ending where Reed was in one place and Sue was in another place and Johnny and Ben were in another place, and they were all in essentially death traps, and they all had to overcome their death traps, which they all did, of course, except for Johnny.
Oops.
Except for Johnny. Oops. Next issue is going to be a Requiem issue, 588, which is supposedly is not going to have much in the way of dialogue. It's going to be 2 stories, a front story and a back story. The front story is going to have almost no dialogue in it. It's going to be a lot of this. Going to a funeral, and the backstory, and Marvel's quick to point this out. Jonathan Hickman is our, not Jonathan Hickman, who's the writer on this thing? Oh, like I should know this ahead of time. No, Jonathan Hickman, I'm sorry, Jonathan Hickman. Jonathan Hickman's going to earn his money for this book. Jonathan Hickman's going to earn his money for the book because the backstory is going to have buckets of text in it, buckets of text. But anyway, this was the big book for this week, and of course, Marvel also celebrated it by reprinting Part 1, Part 2, Part 3, and Part 4 of this storyline, all coming out the same week as Part 5. Also this week, we had The Age of X Alpha, number 1, coming out. This is a return, sort of, kind of, to the Age of Apocalypse that Marvel did back in the early 90s, actually early mid-90s, 1995 I think it was, with the parallel timeline. This is a world where there are no X-Men, there never were any X-Men. The few mutants that are floating around have been hunted to extinction, and the few mutants that are left that haven't been hunted to extinction have been co-opted into the government, and essentially it's just a return to the Age of X. And this thing, the problem with this was, this didn't sell at all this week, hardly. But the big problem with this was it came out the same week as that. Marvel should have shipped this next week or the week before. Okay, anything that you ship with this book, behind me, 3, just going to get overshadowed. Also in the world of mutants this week from Marvel, the end of X-Men Forever Volume 2. I talked about this before. This is, in fact, the last issue of X-Men Forever Volume 2. I don't know what Mr. Claremont's going to do for a living now. He's got a couple other Forever franchises going on over at Marvel. New Mutants Forever, and I believe X-Factor Forever
Turns out forever ain't as long as you thought.
are still going on, but those are miniseries. And once those wrap up, he needs to find something new to
Not
do.
so much forever.
I hear John Byrne needs a writer over at IDW for Jurassic Park, so, who knows? Also, Marvel released this Magneto one-shot. Marvel's doing a bunch of one-shots based on different X-Men. Cyclops is getting a one-shot. Marvel Girl is getting a one-shot. Beast and Iceman, the two of them together are getting a one-shot, but it's going to be the two of them together in one book. And Marvel, I assume, is doing this because you've got X-Men First Class coming out in a movie sometime this year, and if you can get a bunch of one-shots out, you can put them together in a book that spotlight each one of these characters. So this came out this week.
Nice cover.
And finally, from Marvel this week, Orson Scott Card proving that he can write more than just Ender stories. Orson Scott Card's Speaker for the Dead shipped this week, so he can actually do more stuff than just books that have the word Ender in the title. In the DC world, we're going to go to DC very quickly because DC didn't ship a lot this week. They did, but nothing much of note. New York 5 shipped this week from Vertigo. This is a continuation of the Mink story, New York 4, which came out about 2 years ago, I think it was. This is a continuation of it. They added one. Now it's New York 5. If you're a disaffected metropolitan, this is your book, and you need to run out and get this. And also this week was the one-shot Shazam, #1, which DC shipped. It's got the nice $2.99 icon cover, and I haven't read this yet, so I'm not going to BS my way through it. But from what we talked about before in the video Outhouse, this is DC trying to hammer Captain Marvel into that square peg, it being a round one. So we will see how this works out. In the indie world, the other big event that happened this week was, no, not the 100 Penny Press. This is a reprint of Zombies vs. Robots, #1, which led us into this. Infestation #1. This is Transformers, G.I. Joe, Star Trek, and Ghostbusters all meeting that world's zombies, Zombie vs. Robots world, which is why that was a $1 book last week. So they can get that out there and you can read it and go, oh, this makes more sense now to me because I never read that before. Anyway, this owes a lot to Stargate, which is not an IDW book right now. That's over at Dynamite, but there's a Stargate-type portal out there, and this world is overrun by zombies. There's a few humans left making the last stand. They have this Stargate, which leads to other universes, and guess which 4 universes come up in the lottery for the zombies to go visit through this portal, which we don't get to in this issue, but will be coming up starting next week. Now, this is a 2-issue miniseries. The Transformers is coming out next week. That's a 2-issue miniseries. Ghostbusters is a 2-issue miniseries. Star Trek's a 2-issue miniseries. And G.I. Joe's a 2-issue miniseries. So that means all this is going to wrap up in about 2 months. This is not like a Marvel crossover that's going to go on for the next year. This is going to be a 2.5, 3-month event, and then it's going to be over, finished, and done with. The reason that they're all getting their own separate miniseries is the same reason Marvel does their own separate miniseries. This story arc will not interfere with any of the current ongoing story arcs that's going on in any of these books. So that came out this week, and of course it had 2 covers, 50-50 split on these, so one isn't any rarer than the other. Of course, this one with all the characters on it was the one everyone wanted, and this one was the one that people really didn't care all that much for. Also this week was the sketchbook that came out for the event. IDW sent this out unannounced. There's no price on the thing. It's $3.99. That's what we were charging for it here at the store. 15% off, of course. And basically, it's just a sketchbook with some nice sketches in it of different characters from these different universes as zombies. Staying in the indie realm, we're going to wrap it up with, look who's back. You know, after waiting like 6 months between $199 and $200, and we talked about this before in Indie News, this book is done up to like 208 or 209. The stories are done, the art is done, they're in the can. These are going to start coming out at light speed, so get used to it. Spawn #201 shipped this week. It's the New World Order for Spawn after #200. And if you like #200, you need to get out and pick this up. And if you didn't, you're doing just fine all by yourself. Also, Twilight Guardianship. This is a pilot season winner who finally graduated their own book. As Bo has talked about before, pilot season books, they come out and they pick one that they're going to do a series on, and then 4 or 5 years later they get around to doing it.
What year did that one win?
This, I think, was last year, so this was actually pretty quick.
Fast
I think.
track.
I think this one was actually fast track. This was pretty quick. But this shipped this week. It's from, like I said, pilot season.
There it is in your hands, comic book man.
Over in the Dark Horse universe, Darth Vader and the Lost Command, a Darth Vader miniseries shipped from Star Wars from Dark Horse this week. This came from Moonstone. This is the Spider, who is a classic pulp character, and the Blonde Phantom. I think it's the Blonde Phantom. Blonde Phantom, I think. Moonstone has the rights to do both. These photo covers are just goofy as hell. I mean, it really is. She looks like she's getting ready to have an orgasm, and he looks like he's getting ready to push out a load, and it's wonderful.
He looks like the Monty Python Eric Idle.
Eric Idle.
Doesn't he look like Eric Idle?
Can't tell you about the interior. I'm not sure if Sweet Dan's revealing this or not. I'm not sure if I gave this to him. I think I might have tried and he kicked it back. Let's see.
I've only done so much for you, comic book.
I'm only showing you this for grins and giggles. The Wit and the Wisdom of JFK. This, of course, was an anniversary this past week or two of JFK's inaugural, and a bunch of JFK tapes were released by the Library of Congress, which is one of the reasons why Glamourpuss creator Dave Sim is trying to cash in on the JFK train for all of the 3 days that people care about it. From Ape was Freak Show, and I have no idea what that's about, but it came out this week with 2 swell covers. And that is this week in shipping. We are now going to do a shop talk, but we're not going to do it now. What you need to do is look on YouTube or look on Facebook or look on the store's website for part 2 of Week in Review for January 26, 2011. We're going to talk about Wizard and Toy Fair being dead, the Human Torch being dead, Marvel rolling back their prices to $2.99, the Flashpoint 14, a bunch of media stuff, and some wrestling stuff. So be sure to check that out. I'm going there now to get the ball rolling.
Be sure to look for part 2 of Week in Review for January 26th, 2011.
Alternate Reality is located at 3149 West 111th Street. That's the intersection of 111th and Kedzie in Chicago, the beautiful downtown Mount Greenwood neighborhood. You can always reach us at 773-881-HERO or at the store's website, www.myalternatereality.com.
The Video Outhouse is brought to you by some of the finest people willing to work for free. This is a list of some of them.